Hello, everyone. I'm Cindy Walter, and I am interviewing my oldest daughter's, one of her best friends that she met in California, Devon Smith. And Devon, first of all, thank you for being with us today.
Of course, I'm very looking forward to it.
And I've been looking forward to it since the idea came into into my head last time you and Katie were talking. I would just first of all love for you to start with your story and why did you go plant-based? Now, just so you guys have a background, Katie, when she moved to California, she started teaching yoga in a studio, met Devon, and I was lucky enough to go visit her, and I got to meet Devon, and I took a class that they did together that was magical. It really was. You two together. I just wished you lived closer because she just adores you so much.
Well,
But
I feel the same about her, so
no,
ditto.
it's just so awesome. I love that she has such dear friends, and thank God for social media and technology to keep everybody together. But let's start with how I don't know your story on how you went plant-based. So tell me and tell our audience.
Yeah, so I would say the story actually begins a long time ago, once upon a time. So I would start with the context of me being a very type A perfectionistic kind of person who, from the time I was very young, kind of fell into the diet culture. So I have two parents that are really kind of, diet and health obsessed. I grew up in California and I was a competitive dancer. So putting all of those factors together, I fell into some pretty unhealthy eating and exercising patterns very, very young. And by the time I was 10 years old, I already had to be hospitalized for anorexia.
Oh God.
So I say that, of course, now looking back, it's been an absolute blessing because it's made me who I am. It's led me to the things that were meant for me. But it's also shocking to say, fifth grade, my friends were playing hopscotch and there I was, working out with my dad in the gym and eating no bread because it wasn't healthy and all of those things. So that's kind of where I started. And that was my life through, middle school and high school. It was kind of up and down. I never went back into the absolute slump of anorexia, but, the same patterns that a lot of people deal with. Trying that diet or this exercise routine or that regime. And nothing worked for me. It wasn't sustainable and I was miserable. And then I went to college at Ohio State. And my very first semester, one of the first girls that I had met was vegetarian. And at the time, I very much felt like, how could she be getting enough protein? Where does she get her nutrients from? I would be hungry all the time. I felt all of that. And then one day she showed me a bunch of YouTube videos with all of these really slim, glowing women talking about how they were vegan. And so this was about 6 years ago at this point. And it was honestly that very first day where I realized, whoa, they look great. They seem really healthy, that I went vegan overnight. So 6 years ago, I had no idea what I was doing, went vegan overnight. It has been a journey since. I've learned a lot since then. But that is technically how I went vegan. And it started with kind of the vanity metrics of I want to be really slim and glowing like they are. So that's how it began.
Okay. And I know you've turned a lot of people onto this because you and Katie were having talks behind my back about trying, because you got your parents both on plant-based diets too. So share a little bit then once you got started. One of the questions I get, Devon, all the time is, well, the comment with a question following, that sounds so difficult. I could never give up meat. I could never give up cheese or dairy. That is that hard to do? And I want to hear how you handle that question.
Yeah, that's a great one. I would say, when you first make the change, as with most changes, it's different. And so, it takes a little bit of getting used to, it takes a little bit of educating yourself, finding new recipes, because obviously you're eating a different diet. That's just the way it works. But I think if you have the motivation and kind of the education of why it's so important to eat this way, then that will kind of keep you going strong and steady along the path. And once you find a few go-to recipes, I mean, most of us only make probably somewhere between 4 to 6 recipes, weekly that we repeat. So you find your go-to recipes and you kind of, stick with those more or less. And I think also for a lot of people that are transitioning, if you can find, the vegan version of the foods that you've always loved, let's say a pasta bolognese, and you make it with tons of lentils to make it meaty, or, you find some vegan cheese sauces, things like that. It's exciting, it's delicious, and it's so healthy. So I don't think it's nearly as hard as people think. It's actually kind of fun.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. So how long did it take you to get your parents on board, and why did they decide to do it? Because a lot of people go plant-based because of health challenges and concerns. So that was why I decided to do it. I had watched Katie, and she's been, doing a plant-based diet for some time. And she talked to me about you and told me how you got your parents going on it as well. And I thought, that was great. And then she had me contact a hormonal doctor, an all natural doctor, and that doctor wanted me on a plant-based diet. So let's talk about all the other challenges. Yes, you can be slim and glow, but what else? And start with your parents. How did you get them on?
So it took about 4 years for my parents to go plant-based. So it was just about 2 years ago that they transitioned. And for them, if I remember correctly, I had them watch one of the documentaries. I don't know if it was Forks Over Knives, Eating You Alive, Game Changers. Maybe they watched all three, and they decided, you know what, let's give it a shot. And what's really interesting is when they first transitioned, they actually went a little bit more pescatarian. And at the same time, they were, checking their weight and they were checking their labs. So they'd go to the doctor, they'd make sure they were good on B12 and all of the things. And when they went pescatarian from their normal omnivorous diet, they didn't have that many changes. And so they were thinking, okay, something's not working. And I think they ended up watching one of the documentaries again for kind of more motivation. And then they went full plant based. So they got rid of their cheese, their eggs, and their fish. And that is when their world flipped upside down. So, my mom had certain menopausal issues that are much better right now. My dad has had high blood pressure from the time he was in his 20s, no more. So every kind of health issue that you could kind of think of has been cleared up, from rosacea and hormonal issues to the blood pressure, weight. My mom was the ultimate dieter, and now she finally doesn't count calories. She doesn't have to. So that's kind of their story, and they're never going back. They love it. They are preaching it everywhere they go.
Yeah, that's Katie just laughs. She hears me talking about it all the time, and I'm constantly reading books and watching documentaries. And I kept thinking I would go back to fish, but she made me watch that Sea Scarcity, or what was that?
Conspiracy.
Yeah, Seaspiracy,
Yeah.
scarcity, same thing. But she had me read. My doctor had me read Joel Furman. Have you read this one? Or
That is one of my favorite plant-based books.
yes. And
Yes.
he pretty much says if you want to prevent diabetes, cancer, heart disease, go plant-based. And he's just all about getting as much nutrition as you can from plants. And it's just huge. So if someone's afraid, like maybe they don't want to go all in, kind of like your parents, they started, and they gave up a few things. What would you recommend to someone that wants to do this? They know the benefits, they've read the books, they've watched the documentaries, they really want to do it, but they're in love with their cheese. They can't imagine going without salmon. That was me. When I had to give up salmon and eggs, I was really depressed. But
Mhm.
how could you encourage someone that's scared to get started on this?
Yeah, great question. I would always say small steps. So there are kind of two versions that you could take with that. The first is maybe you start with one, vegan plant-based meal a day, and eating just one a day is kind of how you start. Then you go up to two, and then maybe three. So that's one option, that you do it based on the meals. Another option is that you simply try to plant-baseify each of your meals a little bit more. So, for example, I've even said to some of my health coaching clients, if you typically have, let's say, Greek yogurt with granola and berries in the morning, what I would want you to do is kind of flip the ratio. So instead of having a bowl of yogurt with granola and fruit on top, make it a bowl of fruit with some granola and a dollop of yogurt on top. So you're kind of switching up the ratio so that it's mainly plants, and you can still have a little bit of your cheese on top or your yogurt or your eggs. So those are kind of like the two different types of ways you could go, I would say.
Yeah, and when I, started this, it wasn't traumatic for me, except for I was really disappointed about the salmon and eggs. But I had given up gluten and
Mhm.
I had given up dairy. And so when I started this, I really wanted to stick with no gluten because I just think it's very, inflaming.
Yeah.
And dairy is too. Dairy causes a lot of inflammation as well. But I also found there's a lot of really great non-dairy substitutes. Like I use almond milk creamer, there's coconut milk, there's macadamia nut. There's so many different like nice creamers you can use if you like cream in your coffee. Or I make gluten-free oatmeal and I'll put one of those milks in, hemp seed milk or one of those milks in. There's so many great options out there. If even eggs, we found an egg substitute. We don't do it often, but sometimes we'll use the egg substitute and it tastes delicious. So I think if you have the right mindset around it and if you're afraid to do it, start small is how I've been encouraging people. You don't have to go all in like you did. That's amazing that you did it that way.
Some might say amazing, some might say a little insane. It's just that I'm a very all or nothing person. So for me, I didn't know how to do it in a more balanced way. It was, I'm going full force.
Okay, so fill me in on this. I know you're recently engaged and you're getting married. Is your fiance eating a plant-based diet as well?
Yes, he is. So, what's really interesting about him eating the plant-based diet, so he went vegan probably around 2 years ago as well. When we had graduated from college, and for him, health is obviously a huge component, but he is also the biggest tree hugger I've ever met. He is, like living, breathing environmental issues, and so for him, going plant-based was kind of the first time that he was really living in alignment with his values, because it was something he had preached for so long. And yet it wasn't until he was actually eating in a way that was supportive of planetary health that he felt like, I'm actually doing something to help. So
Yeah.
that's been kind of the coolest thing for him.
That's awesome. That's awesome. All right. So we're going to end in a few minutes, and I want you to share with how people can connect with you. But what advice can you give people? On top. I mean, you coach health people not just on plant-based diets. You and I were having a little conversation about stress too. So let's talk other things health. Like what other tips can you help the group that I'm sending this video to that deal with some hormonal issues. It could be premenopause, during menopause or postmenopausal issues for overall better health.
Yeah, I would say the kind of three things come to mind immediately. So one is exactly what you just said, that we were talking about, de-stressing, trying to bring in a little bit of slowness and silence to your life. So one of the easiest, quickest ways that I've done that for myself is actually practicing some deeper breathing. So there's a technique that's really easy to learn called the 4-7-8 breath, where you inhale through your nose for 4 seconds, hold at the top for 7 seconds, and then slow exhale through your nose for 8 seconds. And if you do about 3 to 5 rounds of that, let's say before you go to bed, or if you're feeling a little on edge, a little anxious, it is like an instant chill pill. So that's one. So finding ways to de-stress, whether it's breathing, meditating, or just, hanging with friends. The second one is finding a way to move your body every day. And it doesn't have to mean that you're going to the gym. It could be a walk around the block with your dog. It could be dancing in your room. So any way that brings you joy, but also gets you moving, is a winner. And then the third thing is sleep. Sleep is so important for hormonal health, for all around brain health, all sorts of, physical functioning. And so the biggest tip that I give my clients is to have kind of a regular nighttime and morning routine. So I'm sure you've heard that, and you probably espouse the same thing. So trying to go to sleep around the same time, wake up around the same time each day, and then have some sort of routine that helps you, calm down in the evening, and then helps to energize you in the morning and get you started for your day. So those three, I would say: de-stress, move your body, and prioritize sleep.
Okay, and then I have to ask about yoga and meditation, and I want you to share what you've been doing for a year today.
Yes. So today is a huge day. I have been meditating daily for 100 days at this point. I had been kind of off and on, not quite daily before that, but this is officially every single morning for 100 days. Um, and I also recently became, as I mentioned to you, a certified breathwork and meditation teacher. So kind of tagging that along with my yoga teaching certification. And it has just been a massive game changer for me. I'm someone that tends to have kind of an anxious mind, kind of excitable, anxious energy. And so just taking even 5 to 10 minutes every morning to sit down, do some of those deep breathing techniques we were just talking about, and then just sit in silence, it's incredible. It starts my day off right every single day.
So you do silent meditation and breath work for 15 minutes?
Yeah. So I set a timer for 15 minutes, and I always start with breath work. I actually think that's probably the missing aspect for a lot of people. Whenever people say, I can't meditate, meditation's too hard, meditation isn't for me, I often think it's because they're still in kind of that monkey brain state. And it's not until we can calm the nervous system and take some deeper breaths that we can actually have a solid chance of sitting in silence. So I do various forms of breathing, but one of them could be the 4-7-8 breath that we touched on. And then I sit in silence. Sometimes I'll think of my breath. Sometimes I will, say a mantra to myself in my mind. Sometimes I will visualize who I want to be, a month from then, and what it'll take to be that person. So all sorts of different kinds of meditations, but anything where I'm sitting in silence is a challenge, and that's the whole point.
Yeah. And that's honestly something I'd love to help people with, because I have people that say to me, I can't even do an hour yoga class because I can't shut my mind off unless it's a power class. And I fell in love with power yoga in a hot room, kind of like what you and Katie taught, just an hour long of it. And I remember when I went to Turbo, I did 4 classes with her straight through. Like she taught, and I took 4 classes straight through. That was how I fell in love with yoga, that workout sweat. And now I probably love restorative yoga best. It's been, quite a journey. But for the people that the thought of quieting their mind for even 15 minutes a day terrifies them, but an hour on a yoga mat, like, what are the benefits of doing that? Talk to us about, yes, it's great to calm yourself, and because I'm pretty much wired like you are, and I go, 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 go. But I have found that giving myself that time is the best gift I can give myself. So share a little bit. What will people, if they can ease into this, what will they get from it?
Absolutely. So beyond, the calm that is introduced into your life, it's also really helpful for focus. We live in a world where we are all multitasking all day long. We have Instagram over here, maybe a podcast is on in the background, whatever you have going on. It's a lot of stimulation and a lot of distraction. So to train your brain to literally just sit there in silence, if your mind wanders, just gently bring it back. That is constantly, rewiring your brain so that you get better at focusing and staying on one focus, one point of one topic. So that's one of the biggest things. And I've also found, kind of going back to the stimulation, that it kind of resensitizes you to stimulation, because we're surrounded by so much going on all the time. It's easier for our essentially, the kind of stimulation that we need to be entertained, to be, having fun. It's been lifted where, we need the TV on and we need to be talking to someone. And There's so much. Whereas if you've trained yourself to kind of just say, okay, I'm just going to sit here for 10 minutes and this is going to be what I do, for the next 10 minutes, then you are more sensitized to all the stimulation and you just don't need as many things. So those are some of the other benefits that I've found even personally.
Yeah, and reading these Dr. Furman books, he really hits home when he says stress kills people, and we have to learn how to manage stress in a healthier way. If you're feeling like what you were saying earlier, if you're starting to feel agitated or
Mhm.
stress coming on, stop for 15 minutes, go for a walk, whatever it may be, but find healthier habits. And a lot of people, when they're feeling stressed and overwhelmed, they go to food and they go to unhealthy food for
Mhm.
comfort, and then they end up in the situation they're trying to escape now.
Right.
I love the fact that you girls are getting this at such a young age, and I wish I would have had this when I was a young mom. It would have really helped those young years where I was so busy being a mom and so exhausted and not fueling myself properly. So I'm so thrilled you guys have this at such a young age.
Yes, I am too. It's been a game changer for me already, so I'm excited for more of the journey.
And I love that you are helping people take control over their health. I love that you're doing this for your career path. It's awesome. And share with everyone, how can they follow you and find you?
Absolutely. So you can follow me on Instagram at Devon, so Devon underscore Rochelle, Rochelle underscore. So Devon underscore Rochelle underscore, or you can just go to my website, which is devonrochellewellness.com. And I have a couple exciting programs in the works right now. So for anyone who is listening to this, who might want to learn more of the ins and outs of plant-based breath work, meditation, any of the above, I'm kind of putting it together in a cohesive package. So I'm pretty excited to launch that soon.
Well, let us know, and I'll attach the links to this when I share the video. I'll upload it to YouTube, and I'm definitely into learning more about breath work. We'll talk about that off air. But
Okay.
guys, thank you so much for tuning in today, and Devon, thank you so much. I just enjoy you're just such a delightful human being. I just love you.
Thank you. I feel the same about you. And I'm so grateful for your daughter as well. She has, brought a lot of this into my life. We've been able to connect so well over it. So just thank you for being the human and mom and entrepreneur that you are. You are a bright light in this world.
Oh, so are you, my friend. Thank you, guys. Thanks, Devon.
Bye.